the Chestnut Man. We moved to Oregon, to a small town called Cedar Hollow. Our address was Alder Creek Lane, a quiet street at the edge of the neighborhood, and behind our fence, woods. My name is Daniel. I'm a lawyer. My wife, Lydia, is a nurse. Our son Mark was 10. We bought the house because it seemed right, spacious, bright, newly renovated, with a big yard. And there was one more reason. Out back stood a large wooden tree house on stilts, a real kid's fort. It had stairs, little windows, and a roof that creaked whenever the wind blew. Mark saw it on the first day and smiled for the first time in a long time. In the new place he was withdrawn. He didn't argue, didn't complain, he just disappeared into himself. I was constantly working and driving around for cases. Lydia picked up shifts and came home exhausted. We kept telling ourselves, it'll get better. But Mark built himself a different life, in that tree house. At first he just played there. Then he started eating breakfast there, then lunch. One time I even caught him up there with dinner. Lydia hated it. Mark, food is eaten inside. This isn't normal. Mark would just nod. But the next day he did the same thing again. And I could see he was becoming more alive. In the treehouse he laughed, talked to himself, and sometimes it sounded like he was whispering answers to someone. We didn't want to admit what that meant. We were just glad he wasn't so gloomy somewhere. One evening Mark asked me, "Dad, can I stay up there a little after dinner?" "Not long," I said. "And not at night." He nodded quickly, like that was the one rule he already planned to break. The third night after that was the night that split our lives in two. I woke up at 2:18 a.m. Not because of noise. Because of silence. Normally Mark shifted around in bed. Something rustled. But this time, it was like the whole house was holding its breath. I quietly went into his room. The bed was empty. The blanket was wrinkled but cold. He hadn't left a minute ago. The window was slightly open. I went to the kitchen. The back door was locked. I checked the lock again. Everything was shut. Then I looked out the window into the backyard. The treehouse was dark, but in the small window there was a faint light, like moonlight reflecting off something pale inside. I pulled on a jacket, grabbed my phone, and went out through the front door around the house. It was cold outside, and the woods behind the fence looked like one solid black wall. I stepped closer and said quietly, "Mark?" From above came his voice. "Dad, I'm here." He didn't sound sleepy. He sounded pleased, like a kid who'd pulled off some secret mission. "Come down." "No," I said. "Wait. I'm coming." I stood beneath the stairs, staring at the treehouse walls, and noticed something near a crack between the boards. A small figure. Mark climbed down holding a chestnut little man, head, body, arms made from twigs. But the figure was smeared with dark red, like paint, or something thick that had already started to dry. "Where did you get that?" I asked. Mark shrugged. "I found it. Here." "You made it?" "No." I reached for the figure, but Mark instinctively pressed it to his chest. "Don't take him. He's cool." I tightened my grip on the flashlight in my hand and took a step closer to the treehouse. "Is someone here?" I said into the darkness. The answer didn't come from inside. It came like it was from behind the wall, from the direction of the trees. Very quiet. "Yes." Cold ran up my spine. "Who are you?" A pause, like someone smiling in the dark. "My name is the Chestnut Man." Another short pause. I was alone. Now I'm not. Mark, like he was relieved, immediately told me. Dad, he's good. He just talks weird. I grabbed Mark by the shoulder. Inside. Now. Mark wanted to say something, but he stopped. We went into the house. I locked the door with the key. Mark stood in the hallway holding that figure, staring past me, like he could hear someone walking away. In the morning I told myself it had to be some stupid prank. A neighbor kid. A homeless guy. Someone from the woods. But by midday Mark started asking to go back to the treehouse again, and he did it like it wasn't a want. Like it was a schedule. Lydia said firm. Not today. You're not going back there at all. Mark silently stood up and went to his room. An hour later I heard his window click. I walked in. He was sitting on the floor with his jacket in his hands. Where are you going? I'm just going to look. You're not going anywhere. Mark lifted his eyes and said quietly. He's waiting. That evening we shut every window. Checked every lock. Lydia left the kitchen light on, like light could scare something off. Mark went to bed earlier than usual. Not because he was sleepy. He just lay there, motionless, staring at the ceiling. At 11:47 p.m., a soft knocking came from the hallway. Not on the door. On the wall. Twice. Lydia stepped out of the bedroom, pale. Daniel, did you hear that? I nodded. I stood near the living room, listening. At 12:12 a.m., the knocking came again, closer to the window this time. And then we heard a voice. Very close, like right under the windowsill. Give him back. I stepped toward the curtains. My hand reached to pull them aside. Lydia grabbed my wrist. Don't look. The voice repeated, flat and emotionless. Give him back. I hissed through my teeth. Go away. A pause. You'll regret it. After that, the house went so quiet I could hear the refrigerator relay clicking. For the next 2 days we lived like we were trapped in a box. Lydia didn't go to work. I canceled meetings. We barely went outside. Mark stayed quiet, but sometimes he stared into the same corner of the room and gave a tiny nod, like he was answering someone. On the third night we decided we'd all sleep together in our bedroom. I wedged the door with a chair. Put the flashlight and keys within reach. At 3:06 a.m., I heard branches crack behind the house. Then a light thud against the wall. And a whisper now right there. Time. I bolted up, turned on the flashlight, threw open the bedroom door. The hallway was empty. I turned back. And saw the window was open. I knew I'd locked it. Lydia screamed. Mark? The spot beside us was empty. We tore through the house in minutes. All the doors were locked. The locks were intact. No signs of a break-in. No sound of someone escaping. We ran outside. I aimed the flashlight at the backyard, and saw the figure on the treehouse stairs. The chestnut little man stood perfectly straight, like someone had posed him for a photo. He was cleaner than before, like he'd been wiped off. And on his head were 2 small dents like eyes. From the woods came a soft voice, already farther away. Good boy. Mark was gone. Not ran away. Not got lost. He simply stopped being in our home. The police arrived quickly. They searched the yard, the woods, the neighbors. They brought dogs. The dogs tracked to the fence, and stopped. Like the trail ended in midair. And then something happened that I will never forget. On the 4th day I finally decided to tear down that treehouse. I walked into the yard with a crowbar and a hammer, and froze. By the treehouse wall, up in a tree, stood a man in rags with thin black hair. Like he had grown there in the shadow of the branches. He was smiling and speaking softly to someone, even though no one was there. I shouted, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" He turned slowly. The smile disappeared. His face went hard and empty. His eyes hit me with a yellow shine, like an animal's in headlights. He made a sound like a growl. I didn't hear words, just something in his throat. Then he jumped down and ran toward the woods beyond the fence, so fast I only managed one step. I chased him, but stopped at the edge of the trees. It was dark in there, even in daylight. After Mark vanished, Lydia held it together for the first week. Then she started talking only about paperwork and basics. She didn't go into the yard. Not once. One morning she said, "I can't live here anymore. You're not changing anything. You just sit and stare at the forest." I didn't answer. Because it was true. Lydia left. First to her sisters. Then she filed for divorce. Over the phone she told me, "I want to live somewhere where the walls don't get knocked on at night." I stayed alone in the house on Alder Creek Lane. Sometimes I thought I heard footsteps in the yard. Sometimes, light tapping. But the worst thing was the silence, the kind that makes you start waiting. One night I woke up and didn't immediately understand what had woken me. Then I heard it, 2 short knocks. On the wall. Just like before. I got up and went to the window without turning on the light. Under the trees was a darker patch of darkness, like the shadow didn't sit the way a shadow should. And a voice spoke from that darkness, short and clear. "Not yours," I whispered. "I'll find you. And I'll punish you." A pause. Try. In the morning I packed a bag, flashlight, water, warm clothes, a knife, not to be a hero, just to not be completely defenseless. I left a note on the table, even though there was no one to read it. "I'm bringing Mark back." I stepped into the yard. Looked at the treehouse. It stood the same, but felt lower, like it had sagged under time that didn't exist here. I walked to the fence. Beyond it, woods. I climbed over and headed between the trees without looking back. Because if you look back, you might see someone standing in the yard, watching you go. And I didn't want to see anything anymore. I wanted only one thing. To find whoever took my son.